Imagine walking into a supermarket and discovering that everything costs 20% more than last year. Or imagine graduating from university, eager to start your career, but finding that no companies are hiring. These are two of the biggest problems governments face, inflation and unemployment. In today's lesson, we'll explore what causes them, why they matter, and why it is often surprisingly difficult for governments to solve one problem without affecting the other. In our last lesson, we learned that GDP measures how much an economy produces. But growth alone isn't enough. Imagine an economy that's growing rapidly, but prices are rising out of control. People may actually feel worse off because their money buys less. Or imagine prices are perfectly stable, but millions of people can't find work. That's not a healthy economy either. This is why governments focus on two important goals: keeping inflation low and stable, and keeping unemployment low. These two objectives are essential for maintaining a stable economy. So let's begin with inflation. Inflation is a sustained increase in a general price level over time. In simple terms, it means that most goods and services become more expensive. As prices rise, the purchasing power of money falls. For example, if a coffee costs £3 today, but £3.30 the next year, your money doesn't go as far. Economists usually measure inflation using something called Consumer Price Index, or CPI. Now, it's important to remember that little inflation is completely normal. Most central banks aim actually for low, stable inflation, like, for example, the UK aim for around 2%. The real problem begins when inflation becomes too high or too unpredictable. So, what causes inflation? Economists usually divide it into two main types. The first is demand pull inflation. This happens when demand grows faster than the economy can produce goods and services. Imagine everyone suddenly wants to buy new phones, holidays, and cars. Businesses can't keep up, so they raise prices. Demand pull inflation can be caused by things like rising consumer spending, government stimulus, and export booms. The second type is cost push inflation. This happens when businesses face higher production costs. For example, wage increases. Energy prices rise, supply chains are disrupted, and to protect their profits, businesses pass these higher prices on to consumers by increasing prices. So one type is driven by strong demand, while the other is driven by higher costs. Now, inflation doesn't affect everyone in the same way. For savers, inflation is bad because the value of their money falls over time. For people on fixed incomes, like some pensioners, rising prices reduce their purchasing power. Businesses also dislike high inflation because it creates uncertainty, making it harder to plan investments. Increasingly, borrowers may actually benefit. If wages rise while the amount they owe stays the same, repaying loans become easier in real terms. Overall, though, high inflation creates uncertainty throughout the economy, making it harder for households and businesses to make good financial decisions. Now let's turn to unemployment. Unemployment occurs when people are willing and able to work but cannot find a job. Governments usually measure unemployment as the percentage of the labor force that is unemployed. Having some unemployment is actually normal because people are constantly changing jobs. The problem comes when unemployment remains high for long periods, preventing people from earning an income and contributing to the economy. But not all unemployment is the same. Economists usually identify four main types. This is the short-term unemployment while people are moving between jobs, and this is called frictional unemployment. Second is cyclical unemployment. This happens during economic downturns when business cut jobs because demand falls. Third is structural unemployment. This occurs when workers' skills no longer match what employers need. For example, advances in technology may eliminate certain jobs while creating demand for completely different skills. Finally, there's seasonal unemployment. Some jobs only exist during certain times of the year, like ski instructors in winter or lifeguards during summer. Each type has different causes, which also means that governments need different policies to reduce them. High unemployment creates both economic and social costs. Economically, it means lower output, lower tax revenue, and higher government spending on welfare. But unemployment also affects people personally. Long periods without work can lead to poverty, poor mental health, lower confidence, and social instability. So unemployment isn't just about statistics. It has a real impact on people's lives and communities. Now, here's one of the most important ideas in macroeconomics. Governments often face a trade-off between inflation and unemployment. Policies that reduce unemployment can increase demand in the economy, but stronger demand may also push prices higher, increasing inflation. On the other hand, policies that reduce inflation often slow the economy, which can increase unemployment. This means policymakers are constantly trying to find the right balance. There is rarely a perfect solution that achieves both objectives at the same time. Now, let's connect this to the world of education. Investment in education improves workers' skills and qualifications. This makes people more employable and helps businesses find the skilled workers they need. Over time, better education can reduce structural unemployment because workers are better prepared for changes in technology and the labour market. This shows that some government policies don't just solve today's problems, they also strengthen the economy for the future. Okay, so far we've explored that inflation and unemployment and what they really are. But how do governments actually manage them? In the next lesson, we'll examine three main policy tools that governments use today: fiscal policy, monetary policy, and supply side policy. These are the main tools economists use to stabilize an economy. Now let's recap today's lesson. Inflation reduces the purchasing power of money and can be used by either strong demand or rising production costs. Unemployment occurs when people want to work but cannot find jobs, and it creates significant economic and social costs. Perhaps most importantly, governments often face a difficult trade-off between controlling inflation and reducing unemployment. Understanding this balancing act is one of the most foundations of macroeconomics, and it is exactly what we'll build on for the next lesson. Thank you very much.